Okay everyone, hello and thank you for coming to watch my video today. This is all about the Matrix 6 and subsequently the Matrix 1000 upgraded firmware that is available from Tauntek.com. Also, I'm going to be talking about a VST editor which was designed by synthmania.de. You can find that at that website. I will put links to both websites in the comments below or in the description below. Okay, so the reason I'm talking about this is it basically eliminates the need for a hardware controller for your Matrix 6 or 1000. I'm using a Matrix 6, I'll be referring to that and as that, but both apply. Now, the original firmware was written in a way that was a little bit steppy and a little bit clunky to automate. It wasn't very fast. And Bob Grebe, who I've spoken to a little bit over the last couple of days, has kindly described to me by his site and also in conversation how the Oberheim firmware was originally written. It seems that the firmware was based on what they did with the expander, actually, which is a really powerful synth that everyone wants, but not all of us can afford, so I guess the Matrix 6 could be a poor man's expander. It's not very expanded, but anyway. So the Matrix 6 now has unfortunately one less chip than the expander had. The expander had a dedicated chip for MIDI commands that made it a lot smoother. Now the 6 has had firmware much improved by Bob. You can see this on his site. You can see the parameters that he's worked on, and you can see that actually more or less most of it is pretty much a lot smoother, if not all of it, to be honest. Now he also says on his site, and to give credit as I should do, that Gleegly worked on a Matrix 1000 upgrade in the first place, and he is also a very respectable person within the synth community. I've got his RX5 editor and it is excellent, so big respect to Bob and to Gleegly, and I'm going to show you now the Tauntek site. Okay, so a quick check of the Tauntek website shows that there is someone who is not paying Bob the money for the modification that he designed himself, and that's pretty bad in my opinion. You can buy it from Bob. You can buy it directly from him. Just find his page on the website and email him, and you can get in touch and buy that firmware, and he'll make it for you. Or you can, if you're in Europe, you can buy it from Untergeek, and they are the German distributor of his product. Otherwise, he's just not going to see any of the money, and I don't think that's fair at all. So yeah, that's the way that works. So next we'll talk about how the VST editor works, and I'll show you an example of how to modulate the synth via this brilliant firmware update. Okay, so I'm going to show you now how to set up the editor VST in Live. Now, if you're using a Mac like I do, you will stumble across this problem inevitably sooner or later. It's the old, age-old, we don't trust this application problem that pops up on Macs. When it extends to Live, it's really annoying because you can't right-click on it and do anything. So you've got to go to Live, Preferences, and then you've got to turn these off and on again. Don't rescan, just turn them off and on, these orange ones here. And then what you'll get is the VST will pop up as an option on the screen eventually. Maybe you'll have to restart Live, and it will say, do you want to open this? It's not trusted by this computer. Do you want to do it? And you will do it and it will be fine. So that's how you get around that problem. Let's show you how to set that up on Live generically anyway. Now, if I put this on this channel and quickly just get rid of this because we don't want that now. You see here, this is something that most people will know anyway from the instructions that probably came with the VST. I can't remember, but it's a common thing with an external VST where you're controlling a synth outside of the computer environment, where you have this turns into an audio channel basically. Now that's useless because you can't send MIDI out. All right, it's got audio. Now what you need to do is receive MIDI from that on this channel. So you've got two channels just to do the whole thing, which is difficult, but you can do it. Then the next thing you need to do is you need to set the port of the MIDI interface and the channel there to what you're going to send it to. So when I do stuff on here with this controller, it's going to be transferred to channel 2 here, and then that will go to the synth. So what we're going to do now is just go into here. This is important. You go MIDI, device, I'm going to go with this here, which is what mine is, and I'm going to go to the channel, which is already set 1. That's fine, so I'm done. Now, when you've done that, what that will do is make sure the MIDI is routed for the sysex. Now, what you need to do then is close that, and then if you want to record notes, which I'm about to do, you need to somehow press record at the same time. Now, not everyone knows how to do this, so I'll quickly show you too. You need to, instead of holding down shift and doing it, which does nothing, you need to basically select that, then hold shift, then get that, and then you can let go of shift and you can do that. Ta-da! Okay, so you've got both channels recording, and that means that when I stab some notes now on the synth, it'll be able to record those. So I'll quickly record some pads for us to modulate for part of this video, and then you'll see what happens then. So there is one more thing we need to do before we can get that sysex to go to here, and I should have done it. Press configure again on this, and you've got to go to MIDI, and you've got to choose your device. All right, so I'm on port 22. You have to do it in here, and then you can do your channel. I've already done it, it doesn't matter. All right, sorry, output channel is 1, fine. And then your input doesn't matter because it's all set up in live anyway. So if I do this now and turn this off, then I can see from where I am that my matrix 6 pops up with the relevant messages on the screen. It actually shows you, which is cool. Now what I'm going to do is basically just record that sequence, play it back so you can hear it. Alright, now that's a patch that I've actually downloaded from a YouTube link. I'll put that in the description. I think it was G-Storm Electro, the channel. But yeah, it's a really good pack of sysex. It's really nice that someone's just shared that, so I highly recommend you download it. It is really, really nice sounding. You probably found it already. So that one's called Blue, Deep Blue, I think, or something like that on that set. Anyway, so what I'm going to do now is quickly just show you how to record that automation in this clip. So what we can do is, well, not in the clip, we won't do it in the clip, we'll do record this way. So if I press record, open this up, open that up. Now, in order to do all that, you've got to have this set on. All right, that there has to be set on. Then what you were seeing was me skipping between, because I was actually automating the resonance and the cutoff at the same time with my fingers on both sliders. So you were seeing it skip between the two visually. Now, if I press this now, then that will open it up and I can take my fingers off the MIDI controller. All right, and you can hear that the automation is really good, it's really smooth, it is really successful in what it does. A quick caveat now, which is really important when trying to automate via MIDI on Ableton. I reckon loads of people get this wrong. Okay, so MIDI is something like a 7-bit or an 8-bit protocol. It's really bad, it's outdated, it's not smooth, it has 0 to 127, that means 128 steps resolution. It's terrible. The problem with it is, it's kind of alright, you can hear it's fine there, we don't have any problems with it in this sequence, but the problem with Ableton is, if you go drawing now, if I say, actually forget, yeah, if I do this, if I draw a node there and there, or if I think I can do it with my, yeah, if I do that, and then I do like that, now this is where it always fails, because what it's trying to do is work out a node for every one of these points, and that is what's going to make it really slow. Now watch this now. If I just extend this a bit longer, let's see if I can make that longer, and see what happens when you press play. Now if you noticed here, the processor went right up. Now that was just the cutoff. If I go and do the resonance, it doubles it. It goes up to 160 CPU usage. Start doing that enough with enough different modulation sources and you're going to end up in trouble. That's when it starts getting glitchy. That's when you end up getting lags and backlogs of MIDI data being chucked at your synth. It's not your synth. It's something to do with MIDI. So that's a caveat worth remembering. Try and get it so you've got individual kind of steps going on here. You'll notice that if you rewind the video, you didn't see so much of a processor usage there. So it's a lot smoother and it's a lot better to either use the pencil tool, as you'll see in the next section, with the clip edit function that I'll show you, or just to use a slider and let it have individual nodes and not much space in between them like this. That's much better. All right, so on to the next bit, which is MIDI mono mode. All right, so this is MIDI mono mode that we're going to talk about now. MIDI mono mode was devised as a way to plug a guitar into a synth so that you could play the same patch, but you could have individual control over each note, because a guitar, you can do that with the strings. So you can modulate each note, basically. Now, MIDI mono mode is something you have to select on the synth. We'll talk about that later. For now, I'm going to quickly play this pad sequence that I've made, just so we know what we're dealing with. Alright, pretty straightforward. So now what we're going to do is show how we can do this. So I've copied this over to here and here and here. Each one of these goes to a different MIDI channel. I'm doing 1, 2, and 3. That's basic channel bass. So it cascades out from there. If your basic channel is 4, you're talking about 4, 5, and 6, and 7 and 8, whatever, because there's 6 of them now. We're only using 3 because I've got a 3-note chord. And I'm going to basically just delete all these notes here, because those ones are below the top note. And that's going to be, the top notes are going to be number 1. Number 2, I'm going to delete the top note and I'm going to delete the bottom note. So we're using middle notes. Easy enough. And you can guess by now what we're going to do for number 3. We're going to delete everything other than what we've got there at the bottom. Okay, easy enough. So we go here, it's folded it or whatever, it's moved it so it's different. And we're going to just basically press on the synth now. You go to master, scroll across, master edit that is, you scroll across, get yourself some MIDI mono and press the button just above protect and the arrow, and you'll be able to turn MIDI mono on. That means you will no longer be able to get polyphonic out of this. Alright, so you can hear that that's no longer polyphonic, it's only hitting one of the notes. Now if I get this and I open this up, I can get to channel pressure and pitch bend, which I've used because in the matrix you can allocate those. This has nothing to do with the VST, by the way. This is just what the matrix does. The matrix is very powerful, as I'm sure you know if you own a synth. Now, what you can do, unfortunately, the VST does not allow you to do this, but I use patch bass, or you can just do it via the synth itself or another editor if you have one like Edisyn. I think one might be able to do it with. But what you can do is allocate, say, the pitch bender, which is known as lever 1. The pitch bender you can allocate to filter cutoff. We're using filters again because it's easier and it sounds very obvious as to what we're doing. Then you can have, say, I've used pressure, which is another word for aftertouch, and I've used that for the resonance, and we'll show you that now. So I'll quickly just go to this one here, and I go to option, and we're gonna, can we narrow the grid? We can't narrow the grid. Okay, never mind. Doesn't matter, it's narrow enough. Right, so we're gonna just press play like this now. Alright, so that probably sounded like the worst brass band you've ever heard, but it's worth showing you anyway. So yeah, I'm glad that you watched it till the end, and I'm hoping that it's useful for you. You can do loads of other stuff with it as well. If you know the matrix, you know exactly what you can tap into there and what you can modulate. So thank you very much for watching, and I hope that this is, again, useful to you. And please, if you haven't already bought it, try and support Bob and try and support the people in Germany who are the authorized resellers for the chip. And check out that VST as well, it's really worth it. Thanks a lot, bye-bye.